Yes, here we are once again, which of course means it's noon Eastern time on a Wednesday. And today that means it's a very
Yes,
special
here
episode
we are.
of the High Noon Hemp Show. I'm, of course, Aaron Jesus. You can search me all over the place. He is Beach. We're here every week, of course. I said this is a special episode, but we do an episode every week. And every week, in its own way, is Hemp Week here on the High Noon Hemp Show. You can find us live and video on demand on the Temptations Beach Facebook page. The YouTube channel is Jedi Hemp and at Temptations on Twitter. If you don't want to see us like this, you just want to hear us in our beautiful voices, you can do that as well on the podcast. Search the Heidi and Hemp Show on Podbean, Google Play, and the iHeart Radio app. As I said, it's Hemp Week, which means a special episode. I wish I had special episode music, like after school special kind of music, but I don't. I dropped the ball on that one. In any case, Beach is high above the hemp quarters in Sharonville on this Hemp Week. How are things in the world of temptations, Beach?
Things are great. I was actually looking for my little sound effects app. I was going to try to do something. Bow, wow, 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 wow. Anyway, happy Hemp Week, everyone. That is correct. I am Beach. He is Stoner Jesus. This is the High Noon Hemp Show. We are here every Wednesday at this exact time, noon Eastern Standard Time. So no matter where you are in the world, set your alarm for 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I am high above the Hemptations in Sharonville at the Hemp headquarters. And we are excited. I'm excited. This is probably the easiest day of preparation I have ever had to do for the show because you're not getting the standard show normally if you're tuning in for the first time. Normally, we have a rundown of things we do: product spotlight, what are you wearing, beach, news, events, international, national, all that stuff on a regularly scheduled High Noon Hemp show. But it is Hemp Week, so we are celebrating. What I'm going to do is I am going to give you guys for Hemp Week my hemp presentation. So this is a presentation that I've been doing. This is probably for about the last 5 years or so. Obviously my presentations have evolved as hemp has evolved since we started. Um, but it'll go longer than 15 minutes. I got kicked off stage one time because I was going long. I was downtown. It wasn't actually because I was going long. They had mismanaged all their time, but they decided to take it out on me, the hemp guy. And that is on YouTube, by the way. If you want to watch me do my presentation, that was, I don't know, 10 years ago? Was that 10 years ago? 2014. Yeah, that was Okra. Um, so that was 2014. So 7 years ago, I was doing my presentation on Fountain Square. Um, and I think I got a decent amount in, but I wasn't done. Sorry, B. Gotta, gotta go. Band's coming on. So we have all day. I can go for as long as I want to, until the internet knocks us off or some other glitch in technology. If you're watching on YouTube, you can message me on YouTube. If you're watching at the Facebook page, uh, Stoner Jesus Services, and can relay any messages that you may or may not have for me during the show. Um, so, without further ado, let's get on with the presentation. Hemp, I believe I called this one History, Uses, and Future. It's true. I kind of added the future part just recently because now that it's legal, I think people are more interested in that part too. So, anyway, there you have it, folks. Hemp, its history, uses, and future. So let's go ahead and start with the history of hemp, which puts hemp about 28 million years old. Whoa. Um, Again, it goes back to the Tibetan Plateau. We all know that originally the Himalayas were where it came from, but they have pinpointed, and again, that is the Tibetan Plateau, is the Himalayas, um, back to, again, about 28 million years. And again, originally was growing at 10,000 feet in altitude. And so that's up there. I think that's why it can pretty much grow anywhere under any conditions, is because it was born under very harsh conditions for a plant. Um, 10,000 years ago, this is the oldest. There's a piece of fabric, cloth, found in Iran, Iraq, China, and again, that's the Fertile Crescent. So hemp traces itself back to the very origin of where we trace agriculture back to, which was the Fertile Crescent around 10,000 years ago. This is where humans were, no longer moving; they were settling down, and they were growing specific crops for specific reasons. Hemp was part of this. 6,000 years ago, we find it showing up as one of the 5 grains that China is growing and using. 4,000 years ago, we've got it as the sacred grass, as part of the 5 sacred plants in India. It's called the sacred grass. Um, again, long history of use when it comes to humans and hemp. And of course, this is the most fascinating thing to me, in all honesty. And I often forget how fascinating this is. But the paper process, okay, the very first paper process was done by the Chinese using hemp paper. So the process of making hemp or paper was hemp originally. And that lasted for 1,900 years, basically. And then, over 100 years. So about 100 and little over 100 and some years ago, making paper from tree pulp is new. Okay. Paper from hemp, 2,000 years old. Paper from tree pulp, very, very new. And, we're cutting trees down to make this paper. Whereas, um, it's just quite ridiculous. And I will get on to yellow journalism, which relates into hemp and regular paper a little bit later in the presentation. And then that we found they have found a part of a bridge in France that is made out of basically what we call hempcrete. And this is becoming seriously popular in the world of construction because it is so earth friendly and obviously stands the test of time. Um, and so I will speak more of hempcrete later in the presentation. So that kind of brings us up to modern time, I would say. Um, and and so well, this is a little bit of Ohio hemp. I had forgotten this was in there actually, but we had hemp growing locally over in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. That was actually Hempfield Township because they're getting back into it over there. Hemp was actually growing in southern Ohio. We were growing more of the traditional Native American vegetables in northern Ohio, I think, at the time for the most part. But hemp was being grown a little bit on the southern part of Ohio. There was a paper plant up in Lima, which is 2.5 hours north of Cincinnati on the west side of Ohio, and then right across the river in Covington, Kentucky, they were processing fiber right up until 1937, which I'll get to the Marijuana Tax Act stopped that. Kentucky was the largest grower of hemp in the United States when hemp was made illegal. Um, Go ahead and hit that next frame, please. So here we have it, the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937. Pay close attention to that H in marijuana because we will discuss that later as well. Um, the American Medical Association tried and failed to stop it. There were many doctors arrested after still prescribing cannabis because right up until then, a lot of doctors didn't know that marijuana was cannabis. That was the key thing to the word the government basically made up, or the media made up, marijuana, to drive making hemp and cannabis. Cannabis is hemp, just so you know, illegal. Farmers arrested because again they were growing for rope, they were growing for fiber, had no clue that the government was now saying that this was a drug, and so We get down to the bottom there where you'll see 1969. It was repealed and replaced and put on the controlled substance list. Well, this is when, and this is 1970. This is when they changed it to a J. So from 1937 to 1969, marijuana was spelled with an H, and from 1970 to present day, marijuana is spelled with a J. That's how made up the word is. That's just, this really goes back to the full blown conspiracy of making cannabis, i.e., hemp or marijuana, illegal in the United States, um, from so many angles. And the propaganda part of it was unbelievable. They made up a word. They convinced an entire country that this drug that was growing everywhere, supposedly, was doing terrible things, and make it illegal. Again, some of the names that are in there, Henry Anslinger is the big one. Started the first, basically, drug enforcement agency. They were bored because alcohol was legal again, and they were looking for something to go after. And all of a sudden, they found out that here's this substance that makes people happy and have a good time. And being used by minority cultures.
Yeah.
That's what they used to convince the public to make hemp illegal by passing the Marijuana Tax Act, is because the minority cultures were using this. They made it, and it was a racist thing as much as anything. Um, you had DuPont releasing the very first synthetic fiber in 1937. We'll talk about hemp fiber in a minute as to why that's kind of important, but it is there. You had William Randolph Hearst, who owned 30 to 40 major publications in the country, um, had just purchased like 100,000 acres of timber for paper pulp. That's really ironic and crazy coincidence, or somehow, for some reason, and again, this was the guy that was pushing the biggest racist lies in his papers that possibly could, to get public behind this. Um, Obviously, trying to replace the hemp paper that he was probably using in those publications right up to that point, or possibly had already done that. Um, Go ahead and hit that next pick, if you would, sir. Well, we're going backwards.
Oh man.
Oh man.
There we go.
So here we get to the rest of, and again, I will talk a little bit about the yellow journalism. Yellow journalism wasn't something that was called yellow journalism because it was like slander or libel or whatever based. It was because they had switched over to using tree lumber, and the paper yellowed and became brittle very quickly. Okay, so instead of just keeping with the traditional paper making, they made up this whole new paper making because of somehow they thought we had endless trees, and then they made an inferior product out of that paper. So it's just, but guess what? We're still using paper from tree pulp now, unless, of course, hopefully you use recycled paper or whatnot. Because if you buy paper that's got tree in it, that's just terrible. So anyway, 1938, Popular Mechanics names its America new billion-dollar crop. 1938, the year after, because they didn't know. The magazine didn't know that the government made hemp illegal by calling it marijuana. Again, some of the greatest propaganda ever done by the history of any organization ever in the history of time. But because they did know, Popular Mechanics said it was the United States' next billion-dollar crop. We couldn't grow it. You've got 1941. Henry Ford builds a car out of hemp. So hemp composite body. Famous picture of him taking a sledgehammer to a fender. That fender was made out of hemp. That car actually ran on hemp fuel, but never saw a day of production because guess what? When Henry Ford actually went to produce the car, he had to import the hemp from China or Russia or wherever that wasn't the United States, and he wasn't going to do that. So that car went right to the back of the. I hope it's still around somewhere in the museum. I'd love to go see it. I'm sure that it is. Um, and so, again, went from being the $1 billion crop to a car that ran on hemp to none of that happening in the United States. Then, to beat all ironies, the United States government comes out with a video in 1942 because we're deep in the war called Hemp for Victory. And you can go check this out. This is on YouTube. Um, it's all over the internet. It's about, it's your standard 15, 20-minute documentary in that gung ho, do it for America documentary kind of voice, promoting the idea that we need to grow as much hemp as we can for the war. I mean, we're talking uniforms, we're talking parachutes, we're talking all of the rigging on all of the ships. Um, and so, uh, 5 years after the government said it was the worst thing on the planet and it's got to go, they are imploring farmers to grow it. And so, this it's just sometimes hard to wrap my brain around that still when I say it out loud. Then I think you get up to the 50s there, and there was one. Apparently, there was one company, one farmer or farming that got to continue to grow, and it probably was for the military. That's probably I don't know too much about that farm in the sense that they were somehow one of the only farms that was continue to grow hemp after the war. Um, but then that finally ceased, 1957. So the 1957 was really the last time, I guess, that hemp was legally farmed in the United States. Next slide, please. Hi, everybody. How we doing today? Happy Hemp Week. um, so here we get to the 2000s, our turn of the century, not the one that happened 120 years ago. Canada has re-legalized for grain production, and they are going full gangbusters with it. I mean, to this day, because the United States was so slow to catch up, that when you go into the grocery store and you find some hemp food products, really good chances are, that hemp seed was grown in Canada, because they've been going pretty strong now for almost 20 years. We're still importing fiber from China and Europe, and most of that's coming from China. China is now, around the year 2000, right? Right around the time that we started, which was 1995. China was developing blends of hemp fiber for the United States, for that demand. Uh, you see BMW, Mercedes, Lotus, all using hemp composites. And so, Mercedes, I think, was using hemp originally was using hemp in um, around their sunroofs or something. BMW was probably using it in their doors back then, because they use a lot of it in their doors now. Lotus actually used it in part of the hood, and it kind of looked like a racing stripe going down the car, but it was actually hemp composite. Um, that was the Eco Elise, uh, first hemp house built in Nashville. Again, going on 20 years old at least. And the story of the first hemp house that was built in the United States is the parents had a child who was highly sensitive to environmental everything. And so they were researching the best possible options to build a house out of for their child, and hempcrete won. Um, and again, I'll talk more about why hempcrete is so good later. But this was done. The research was done by and so you can only imagine how beneficial that would be if we all lived in hemp houses for our environment, because some are a lot more toxic than others. That's for sure.
Mhm.
Um, so then we have the HIA versus the DEA, and this all stemmed from the DEA was literally threatening to go into Whole Foods and seize their hemp food products under the Controlled Substance Act. Okay, and so the HIA, Hemp Industry Association, sued and won again, which clarified at that time if something's a hemp product, it's a hemp product. Something's a marijuana product, it's a marijuana product. You know, marijuana products are not legal federally, hemp products are. And so that's when we really saw the retail big box stores get involved, started showing up at Walmart, started showing up here, started showing, all these places started getting involved with selling hemp products and continue to this day. There's not a, I mentioned this on the store while I was in Menards, and on one of their racks, one of the first racks when you walk in, top shelf was some suntan oil with hemp, big as life hemp, on the labels. And so, and it's always my goal, always my goal. So good for them. Uh, West Virginia, around this time, around 2000, was actually the first state to re-legalize industrial hemp. And what happened was there is part of re-legalizing it said you had to get a letter from the DEA giving you authority to grow hemp. Well, guess what? The DEA was not even about it, was never going to be about it, wouldn't do it. And so nobody in West Virginia got to grow hemp 20 years ago. But this was, all in all, it was the first of states saying we want to grow hemp. Is we're not afraid of this plant, and our farmers should be growing it. Um, but again, unfortunately, that went nowhere um, until we get to 2014. That definitely should have a drum roll because 2014, and I'll say this was almost 20 years, this is 19 years into being into business selling hemp goods. And I didn't see it coming. There was like a brief build up to it in some states talking about it. And then all of a sudden, boom, part of the Agriculture Act, Section 7606, defines what industrial hemp is, which was the biggest key. It's putting that 0.3% on there. Now, I will say that number came from what we've always understood as the international percentage of THC that you can have in hemp. And so all the, where it was being grown, China, France, Germany, wherever, all those countries that were growing it. Now, this was kind of the international standard, was this 0.3%. So this is what the United States adopted. Um, and then basically, it defined what the states had to do because then the states had to come along and change their laws or make hemp legal in their states for the most part um, as part of the federal program, this Section 7606, which basically said it had to be done through the Department of Agriculture or through a school of higher learning. So you had to go through um, one of those two to grow legal industrial hemp. Um, and then again, we went from in 2015 about 100 acres, or not even that actually. In 2015, I think there were legitimately only no, it's probably about 100 acres in the United States, but I think it was like 15 in Kentucky that were federally legal, which I was lucky enough to go through 3 of those farms that year in the fall, uh, which was just great making that little tour and seeing it done. And then we get to the Agricultural Improvement Act of 2018, which is the real big step because it takes hemp off the controlled substance list. So no longer do we have to go to the DEA to get a special letter from the DEA because that had to have been done from 2014 to 2018. You still had to have the seeds you were going to grow taken off the controlled substance list by the DEA that year, whenever you were ready to grow them. Now we no longer have to do that. We no longer have to do that. And that is when we saw the boom. I would say, again, 2019, 2020, we were dropping as much hemp seed in the ground as we had ever seen before. Um, which leads me to, I believe, the next section of this hemp week, simply titled "Why Hemp." Okay, here's 8 reasons. It's just that simple, folks. I believe the first one is, in fact, food.
Mhm.
Um, and I think this is the greatest reason because it's food. All right. It's high in protein. It is, one of the highest foods that you can consume on the planet for protein. And it is, barring, I think, the sea kelp, or I forget what it is, the highest plant source for protein. Whole seed is high in fiber. It's got that perfect 3-to-1 ratio that they're always talking for omega 6 to omega 3 essential fatty acids. It also has um, other vitamins and minerals, magnesium, potassium, all kinds of things that we want to consume to have a successful human body, so to speak. Um, to have your body in homeostasis, which is where you want it naturally. And what that means is your body is basically working at its peak performance. You're getting as much out of your body as you want when it's at homeostasis. Um, you know, I hate to use the term superfood. I hated using it 10 years ago, 15 years ago, as much as I hate using it now. But it is literally grown to most people's in the nose superfood list.
Mm.
Um, you see a lot of athletes adding it to their diet. You see, um, Dr. Oz, for whatever he was worth, he had a hemp seed diet. Everywhere, everybody at some point or another, when it comes to food and nutritional value to food, is adding or has hemp on its list. Um, and I think, public health reasons, this is another reason why we really need to get behind it, as we need to drive the cost down by making so much hemp grain that it becomes cheap and comparable. And we're making cereals out of it and all those foods out of it, and replacing the what we're using now. As far as that goes, the human body will be in so much of a better shape, so much better. This next one is probably the biggest one, the most popular one. I added it to number 2. It jumped in front of fiber, which I'll get to in a minute. But and really, I needed to update this because it's not just CBD now. We have CBG, CBN, Delta 8. As we are starting to isolate all these components of industrial hemp, we're finding these therapeutic values for these things. And again, it's very non euphoric, with the exception of Delta 8, which, is a little. But, CBD continues to be one of our highest selling products. And again, we've been selling CBD for 10 years at least. We have our own line of CBD with gummies and tincture and whatnot. And the reason that, I took that step is because of how much success we've seen up to the point where we came up with developed our own product. And ours is very simple: 2 ingredients, CBD and hemp oil, both grown in Kentucky. Um, and our customers use it for 3 main reasons. its anti-inflammatory properties, its anxiety properties, and it's and for sleep. Um, but you can see that it has many other purposes, of therapy that our customers use for therapeutic value. I've gotten letters from parents with autistic children that thank me immensely once they figured out the right dose for their child. It changed their lives. Um, Fibromyalgia, all kinds of ailments. And the one thing I've always said there is do some research, see if you think CBD or one of these other isolates may be able to help you. But we're definitely seeing a lot um, of our customers, obviously, because we have a lot of repeat customers, online and in the stores. And if it didn't work, I don't think they would invest in it because it's not cheap either. Um, and the one thing I hate more than anything, you know, I used to get up on my soapbox and sound like a snake oil salesman when I talked about hemp. All the great things you're going to hear, how great hemp is, food, fiber, blah blah blah. Here it comes, you know, um, and then here comes what people were calling snake oil, because it didn't give them a buzz. They didn't think it worked, and guess what? The reason it works is because it doesn't give you a buzz. And so, um, it is definitely top of the list. I joke now, for the first time in 25 years, industrial hemp is actually making the stores a little bit of money, um, because of its value to the market. Um, and so there you have the good old CBD. Again, you can see that, and this was taken from somebody else's website. Do your own research and whatnot. It seems like every day though, if you watch the show on a regular basis, there's usually some research out there that's saying, "Hey, yes, it does help with this. Hey, yes, it is doing this. Yes, it is safe to drive." That study was done, and on and on and on. So we are definitely seeing more organizations. The Arthritis Association came out and um, talked about how uh, they're people with arthritis, and I have waited on customers that were using it for arthritis, for cream. And so again, it does have an amazing amount of value uh, to homeostasis, in all honesty. Um, Now, the next reason was the reason that really we started Hemptations. I had been doing a lot of research in college, and when I, learned what I learned about hemp fiber, the biggest thing, no herbicides or pesticides, and the reason that's important is because cotton uses over a third of all the chemicals of any agricultural crop and all the agricultural crops in the world. A
Wow.
third is for cotton. Okay, hemp requires no herbicides or pesticides, and get this, it is 4 to 6 times stronger than cotton. Proven fact. Here's the deal. To go back on a little bit of history, the cotton gin and a hemp decoritator. Hemp was very hard to process because the stalk is so tough. They had these big kind of triangular looking wood block, and they'd have to pick it up and close it, and the blocks were set off from each other so it would come down and break the hemp so they could get to the fiber. Um, or they use a process called retting, which is they left it in the field over the winter to soften up so they could break and get to the fiber. And so there was a machine, a hemp decoritator, that was being invented that would do all that. But the cotton gin kind of became popular, or was marketed better. I don't know what happened there, to the cotton world, because again, cotton is tiny little pieces of fiber, and then you got to take it and stretch it out and weave it together, kind of. Hemp is one long piece of fiber from the root to the top of the plant, which on average, if you're growing for fiber, is probably 10 to 12 feet tall. Um, and so, again, strongest natural fiber out there. And again, you can weave it as smooth as silk or as rough as burlap. I have hemp silk pillowcases. I don't know that I mean, I don't know that I have anything made out of burlap, but oh no, yeah, I do. I have a laundry bag that's made out of hemp burlap as well. And so the utility of the fiber itself is quite incredible. And again, we could go from growing the most polluting plant on the planet, the most polluting plant on the planet, to a superior alternative and be done. Be done.
Yeah.
No, I mean, just switch over. Just wherever you're growing cotton, start growing hemp for fiber. Wherever you're growing cotton, start growing hemp for fiber. And, it is somewhat drought resistant. And so, if that is one reason why cotton is usually grown in the South and successful, hemp can it just has to get started. Once it gets started, it goes. It goes quite successfully. And so, that was, and again, that was my main driving force, because that was the only market that really existed in our world when we started Hemptations in 1995. The only products that we could really get was clothing, and then some seed oil products, balms, which is coming up, I believe, later in the section. But it was mostly clothing, bags, jewelry, wallets. Those things were out there. I bought my first hemp bag at Kings Island, Kings Island, the amusement park, in the leather shop. Even crazier. um, Around, I don't know, 1992 ish, probably somewhere. It was early 90s. I know that. But that was my very first hemp purchase, which I still have on the wall over there somewhere, um, without a doubt. And so, the fiber aspect was really the driving product aspect for us. That's the main product that we had out there to show people, because my goal was in 1995 was to show people that hemp should have never been taken away from the American farmers. Never, ever. Okay. Next graphic, please. Body products. Bum, 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 bum. And again, these existed. There was a little bit of this. Lip balm, I remember. Mary Hempsters back in the day was one of the first that was using hemp oil in their lip balms. Um, so we did have a little bit of body products. And the same reason that body products are great is the same reason why we eat it. You get the same benefits, basically. So when you rub that lotion into your oil, into your skin, you're absorbing that protein. You're absorbing those omegas, those vitamins, those all that uh, healthy stuff right into your skin, because hemp oil has the right viscosity for absorption. Okay, petrochemical based products don't they seal the skin. Okay, they used to brag about it. Seals the moisture in. It's a terrible idea. Terrible, terrible, terrible idea. Our body is trying to get rid of that moisture for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so if you want to replace that moisture in a healthy way, you need a healthy oil and something that actually is going to go into the skin. Um, and, we've always known this. And, like, just like the CBD, if and I forget to mention, if you use CBD as a topical, it never makes it to the blood. Okay. It only makes it to the area that you're applying it to and is used there. Um, same as this, um, because your skin is going to absorb it and use it on the surface. Um, and so, uh, and this was kind of fun because we found these guys, I don't know, at least 10 years ago, probably too. But there's actually a huge distributor of supplies to make body products, has a whole line of hemp. Hemp for shampoo, hemp for soap, hemp for however you want to do it. And again, that has become a huge market, a huge market. Because once again, if you market a body product and then you find out the benefits of hemp and you don't put it in your body product, you are not doing your customers any good. If you don't come out with a line of hemp products, you can still keep the products you have, and come out with a line of hemp based products, then you are not doing your customers any good at all. We're just a tiny little shop, in my opinion, and um, my customers yell at me if I don't have their hemp lotion and their hemp soap in stock, uh, because they love it. Again, it's just so much of a better thing to use on a daily basis than a lot of the products that are out there, and that price is also starting to come down and starting to compete with, um, the cheap. Again, you turn the label over. If you can't identify 5 of the ingredients in the product, don't buy it. And then, I think that's being quite gracious, to be honest with you. Because in all honesty, if I can't identify one of the products in the product, I'm probably not buying it. So I'll give the average person 5, you know. But and a lot of times too, because this is kind of happening now, as people are marketing themselves as a hemp product, and hemp is like on the bottom of the list. It is an ingredient and it is in there, but just don't make sure they're not just using it for a marketing scam to catch your eye and be like, oh, I've heard that stuff's good for me, and then you buy it and you turn it over. Oh, it's the last ingredient by dry weight on the bottle. Not a hemp product. It is not. Next slide, please. Here we go to move on to the pets. Again, huge amount of pet success. The first one was CBD. We use CBD on Josie. Um, we just had a run on CBD because of Independence Day and fireworks, because it's the only thing that really calms our dog. Um, and I think once again, a lot of people are, um, for elderly dogs, using it. And again, it's not gonna, and it's gonna give them a better quality of life. It's not, it doesn't heal anything. It does. In no way would we make any medical claims that your dog is going to get better. If the dog might move around a little better, um, but even with hemp, just hemp food, non CBD treats and food, again, high in protein. Everybody is looking for grain free dog food because, yeah, canines don't normally eat grain in the wild, as far as I know. So that is smart. Um, but if there was one grain that you would want in your dog food, it would definitely be hemp seed. And of course, it could be hemp seed oil from the seed, which I think is would be the way that would go. Exotic bird food a lot of times has hemp seed in it because they've always known that birds love hemp seed. Um, and just full seed. Dog food, cat food. Once again, getting those protein, getting those omegas, getting all those things that make for a healthy dog or cat as much as, um, uh, anybody, and probably horses now too, because we're seeing a lot of equine interest in hemp. A lot of it's CBD, a lot of it's bedding, which I'll bring up in a minute. But I think that, and what's getting researched right now on the livestock part of it is adding industrial hemp or grain or seed oil to the approved livestock feed list because it's not on there. Um, you know, I know chickens love. We know chickens love it, and I think that once again, once it is accepted federally or in states or however, to do that, I think you once again will end up with a much better all more all natural. We don't need steroids or antibiotics and all that stuff in our meat either. But a hemp in their diet, I think would be great. Again, the betting on theirs, every animal from gerbils to snakes on up to horses, as far as that betting goes. And then again, we sell toys and leads, jackets, clothing, whatnot, like that. And the reason there is, do you want your dog chewing on a cotton toy that's got chemicals all over it? From what I mean, it said there's more chemicals to grow that thing than anything on the planet. Synthetic. Do you want your dog to try to be digesting a synthetic fiber? They chew that synthetic fiber toy up. Well, where's some of that going? That plastic. That's what it is, basically. You it's going right through their diet. So, I think that, and again, I don't, I am not here to speculate in any way, but I'd sure like to have a study done on dogs or cats that play with synthetic fiber toys and dogs and cats that get cancer. I don't know if there's a correlation or a causation, but it might be an interesting thing to think about. And so, that's why we obviously have always supported the idea of buying all natural um, toys and whatnot for our cats, because we've got the from the field, so we've got a whole line of cat toys. I just ordered a bunch of dog toys, so we'll be getting those in soon. I'm sure I'll focus on those soon in one of the coming episodes of the High Noon Hemp Show.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a lot of customers from over the years that really love the idea of using hemp stuff for their pets. Uh, no doubt about it. Everybody should be doing it. I think the most on one of the lists I found recently online, the eco-friendly harness for dogs was made out of hemp. So good for them. All right. This is the one of the most popular subjects of all hemp subjects that you can talk about. Hemp houses are going up every day all over the world. And the main reason is the hempcrete. Now, you can't use the hempcrete for load bearing crete walls, but you can use it for everything. You can use it for the walls. And what we're seeing a lot of now is they're spraying it on, um, and what we're doing is we're using what they call the hemp herd. So that's basically the outside. When it's broken up, it breaks up into the little chips, and we're replacing the sand or the pea gravel that you normally have to throw in, which again is non-replaceable on the planet. And there is a sand shortage. We will have a sand shortage, probably not in my lifetime, but my son's lifetime will probably see the true sand shortage. And so we're seeing a lot of people all over the world showing interest and using hempcrete. Going back to that bridge in France, right now, hempcrete, they've always been using hemp. My understanding is in France, the little gendarme booths where the cops hang out, those were made out of hemp. One, because it's flame retardant, whether it's the fiber or the wood or obviously the hempcrete. Hemp is naturally flame retardant. I had a customer whose car burnt down, and the only part of the interior of the car that remained was the part that was under his hemp backpack. So I think it still burnt his hemp backpack, but by the time it got to the seat, the fire was out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, um, that's always been one of the most amazing stories that I can tell. I think when it comes to hemp, in all honesty, you've got the press board. Anything that you can make out of wood, you can make from hemp. So not only do we now have press board, and I need to kind of update this, but we have lumber, 2x4s and 4x4s that are being made out of, and again, it's a pressed board, so to speak, but it's made out of that herd or shiv. I think it's known in the real world. The hemp industry has kind of named it herd, and I'm not even sure if it's made it to Webster's dictionary yet. But I'm gonna have to actually look it up to see. Um, but anyway, so that wood is now being produced right over in Kentucky. Um, and again, the price of wood is up right now, and obviously hemp wood is somewhat expensive, but um, comparatively speaking, you're not cutting down a tree. I mean, we're talking about tree-free wood here, which is the goal. Tree-free paper, tree-free wood, everything tree-free. Leave the trees where they are for the most part, unless it's dead. Why would you cut a tree down at this point in our world? Um, and so I think the replacement of, again, replacing concrete and replacing the wood, you've just about got your house built. Okay, but then we can move on to insulation, which I don't have on here, so you can insulate the house if you need to. And obviously, hempcrete makes for a very good insulation. We're finding there was a hempcrete residential building, and I talked about this on the show, built over in Europe, and the tenants swore that it was much easier on their electric bills, summer and winter, both. Um, and so again, just showing so much benefit. It's hempcrete, mildew free, allergy free. I mean, again, it's clean. It's a clean way to be surrounded by walls and whatnot. Paint and stain, the hemp oil, and again, there was before industrial hemp, um, there was on the market hemp based oil, stains, paints, all that. We actually sell a hemp oil based stain now in the stores, Hemp Shield, if you need a hemp stain for something. Carpeting is another one. We're seeing you can go, I have found some hemp carpet online. It's not cheap. Um, but, once again, chemical free and longer lasting, just a healthier, breathable fabric or bedding. You could do both. You could do the bedding of the carpet and the carpet made out of hemp. Um, and now the latest and greatest that's come about is graphene. Okay, now to make graphene out of um, ore sourced material, it's like super super expensive. But now we can make graphene out of hemp. And what we're seeing the most use in graphene is supercapacitor batteries. Okay, it's a whole different kind of battery that we're trying to work into, um, daily products. I think, and so being able to make that graphene at such a lower price point makes supercapacitor batteries go down in price immensely. And if we're not looking at batteries to replace all of the energy in the world, then we are not doing the world any favors as well. If we can figure it is the ultimate goal is to use solar and wind to make the energy to push to the batteries to give everybody the energy they need. No more coal, no more oil, no more timber, nothing for fuel sources. Um, all natural energy to all natural energy. And we're seeing that happening now. The big discussion now in the United States is solar. And, there's two different discussions. One is does the government invest in huge, large, mini acre solar farms, so to speak, or do they invest in letting us, giving us the benefits of putting solar on our houses? That's kind of where we're working it out. Obviously, both solutions are what we should go for. Again, if the big energy companies want to keep their hand in overcharging us for energy, then they better start figuring out how to make different energy. I mean, they know coal's not going to last forever. There's a huge coal industry still, don't get me wrong.
Mhm.
But again, can we just stop pulling coal out of the ground and just leave it alone for its, let it do its thing for whatever it's doing, just like oil, and use an alternative source that's renewable? We can grow hemp in 5 months. Some places that's 2 crops a year. You know, um, someday I want to see a barge full of hemp seed going down the Ohio River, because I see barges full of coal going down the Ohio River all the time. And what's really funny is you see a barge go downriver full of coal, and then all of a sudden you see a barge going upriver with full of coal, and I'm like, well, that seems counterproductive. Why doesn't everybody just keep their coal, whatever direction it's coming from? But anyway, you know, as an oil source, once again, we move to the next reason why hemp. Um, and again, the top of the list is my favorite. Top of the list is my favorite, and that is hemp composite. Because hemp composites could replace conceivably, and I just want to be fair, 60 to 70% of all plastic that we're making from the oil that we're pulling out of the ground that we don't need to. Okay? And I'll repeat what I just repeated, and I'll repeat again. That's every 5 months. This is a renewable source for composites that could replace 60 to 70% of the plastic on the planet. Um, I don't know if I talk about it later. I can't remember, but like I was mentioning, BMW dropped the body weight of their electric vehicles by 20% by using hemp composite door panels. And so they obviously passed the structural test of safety, um, and are much lighter than they were probably using some type of fiberglass, possibly composite before. Um, it's hard to say. That same oil makes plastic, just like the same oil that makes plastic now can make fuel. So you have ethanol, which, again, ethanol is supposed to be naturally based. We make ethanol out of corn mostly right now, I believe, because we grow so much corn. And of course, corn for ethanol is better than corn for humans because we don't even digest corn. So good for them there. Diesel. The original diesel engine or diesel engines were meant to actually run on vegetable oils and hemp. Hemp was one of them. Um, and again, it was actually biodiesel originally. We don't call it that, but the petrochemical companies realized that they could get their hands into the diesel market, and all of a sudden, petrochemical diesel is now the most prevalent diesel, as opposed to the biodiesel, which was when it was again invented. It's like the paper thing, you know. It was invented using natural, renewable sources. And then all of a sudden, somebody thought it was a good idea that they could do the same thing out of petrochemicals, and bam, all of a sudden, no more natural. Just so ridiculous. All because we believe that we can suck all the oil out of the planet and there will be no adverse effects. I hope that's true. Um, and then again, it can be a burning oil. I have a little oil burning lamp. Put hemp oil in there, lit the wick, and boom, it lit the way, so to speak. Again, the rumor was that was Lincoln, when he was in Kentucky, was reading by the hemp oil lamp, because Kentucky did grow a lot of hemp. I mean, the correlation is there. That's for sure. To say that may actually be true, um, because again, they were growing for fiber, but then they had to have had a lot of grain left over, a lot of grain. So of course they were trying to figure out how to use that grain for whatever they could. And it's funny that they weren't trying to eat it, um, for some reason. Um, with its long history of being a food product all over the world. Um, But but chances are they were saving most of it for next year, and then whatever was left over, they were figuring out could be used for this, that, or all the other. Obviously, the hemp oil can be used in the food product. It's the same oil. Honestly, I'm sure that how it's refined makes a difference as to whether you use it in a composite, an engine, or yourself. Um, but I mean, the fact that that oil from the seed can do all these things, you know, with the body products, um, once again shows the overall utility of this plant. That's why I truly believe that there is no other plant on the planet that could replace so many products in our dirty world. Um, it's just nothing compares. Nothing compares when it comes right down to it. Nothing. Um, Next graphic, please. The one I talked to a lot about again. Um, and this is all this statistic you see a lot when it comes to hemp and its statistics, and that's the 1 acre of hemp in 6 months equals 4 acres of timber, which takes 7 to 10 years to grow. So, and again, I think that's down to 5 months now, but just to be safe, 6 months. In 6 months, you're talking about growing the same amount of material to make what takes 4 times more space and 10 times more time. Um, it just to me seems so unbelievable that we don't still make paper. There's so much paper in the world. There is so much paper in the world still. Keep talking about this rumor of paper disappearing, but paper is not going to disappear. Um, and then again, more durable, longer lasting. And we found that out until they, again, think about the fact that they didn't process the timber enough in the first years of making it into paper to make a quality paper, that they had to process it even more to make it into a quality paper. It's just, and if you've ever been around a paper making plant, they don't smell very good. And so, once again, the history is there and the reason is there. And so let's just stop cutting down trees for paper. Uh, France, and the reason I put this in here really, France has a long tradition of rolling papers. France is the only country in the world, industrialized country, that never stopped growing hemp. France is the only industrialized country in the world that never stopped growing hemp. And so I cannot praise them enough for being intelligent enough for knowing the difference between a drug that gets you high and paper. I mean, that's all I can say about that. You can make fun of the French all you want to, but somehow they were smart enough to realize they shouldn't stop growing this great plant. Um, and again, starting to make a return. I use all hemp paper products. And again, it's normally a hemp blend with recycled. Actually, all the paper products that I use, from our business cards to my printing paper to poster, most of my poster paper, some of it is unfortunately not. I try to go recycle there when I can. But all of that is, and it's only maybe like right now we're only at like 25% hemp and then 75% post consumer waste. Um, but what's happening is now, and this is what I said about industrial hemp once we legalized it anyway, is we are now going to start, coming up with 21st, 22nd, 21st century technology um, to process and manufacture and make hemp products, which, again, is where we are kind of right now. We're in that in between of, hemp is legal to grow. We need it processed and manufactured into all these great products. And so, little by little, uh, if we could just once again get one of these big paper companies that have committed themselves to cutting down trees and making paper out of it to commit themselves to stopping and figuring out what it would take to switch over to hemp, um, to change the world, and hopefully coming sooner as opposed to later. But I commend the small companies. There's a couple out there. We sell, we carry the green field hemp paper. You've got Tree Free out there. It's doing obviously tree free paper using hemp, and some others. You know, um, all the way. And so uh, it's a process that's going to return to humanity and make the planet so much better. Just by doing so. For now, support your post-consumer waste, your recycled paper. Buy hemp where you can. Find it, use it if you can. It's another one of those things where the process has to be made easy enough that the price can come down, and then that they have a supply of the materials that they need to keep that going. And start putting it on the shelves everywhere, and just slowly return. At least give it its chance beside what exists now, and let the consumers decide, I suppose. But make it fair. That's what we got to get the market to make it fair. So, next graphic, please. The future. Dun dun dun. As I have said and will always say, my evil plan has always been to replace every product that can be replaced by hemp with hemp. Boom, Earth saved. It's just that simple. In all honesty, and it is what we're seeing. We're seeing the the fiber users, clothing companies, fashion industry, all those places are starting to use more and more fiber. We're seeing more and more food product. Again, every day there's a food product getting added to some grocery store somewhere. And you can't walk into a grocery store or shop for food anywhere that doesn't have hemp food on the shelves in one form or another. Um, and, adding it to your diet is nothing but beneficial. Again, the construction aspect is just, again, just blowing up all over the world. United States interest, European interest. Um, people, they can't build hemp houses fast enough. From tiny homes to full blown, what I would call a mansion almost. And whether it's using the hempcrete, and then just recently, I saw someone that was going to use the hemp wood as well as, I believe, and so the construction, and we are so at the entrance of there, because if you know anything about the construction industry, they don't like change, and they are controlled by bigger factors of the world. Uh, that they don't, but what if we can once again start to convince them? If it's not gonna set you back any. It's going to benefit you. It's not a setback. It's not something, that you're being told to do because the earth is polluted and you should do it for environmental reasons. Yes, that's one of the reasons. And that should be taken into account as to if you're going to give your customer the same product or possibly a little better product, why not do it? You know, why take the eco route, even if you hate the planet and you're like, yeah, screw it. I don't care about that. I make a product that is so destructive to the planet. I don't care. You can still use a superior alternative, and still hate the planet. I don't care. That's my goal, is to not give anybody the choice to buy the product, but at least give us the choice to buy the products that don't hate the planet. Um, CBD is shit. We've already seen the boom. Sorry, I cussed. Um, I mean, the future of CBD has already happened. Now there is a future to CBD, and I mentioned this last week or so. But now we're just going to see CBD and everything, and it's not going to be a CBD product. It's going to be now with CBD, now with CBD, now with CBD. And again, we're kind of waiting for the FDA um, to to give the go ahead. And once the FDA says one way or another, if they say nope, can't do it, then it'll never get done. And that, which is unfortunate, once again, because it's like vitamin C. It's not ever a bad idea to put vitamin C in your body. We dispel vitamin C if we have too much, for the most part, and it's beneficial. And CBD is the same way. I think we're going to see a lot of people take CBD on a daily basis. Again, it's once the FDA says it's okay to put in food and products, things over the counter, or whatever, then every vitamin maker in the world is going to add that. Whatever if they come up with a daily recommended value, then we'll see that percentage, and that's what we're waiting for. And I guess we got to figure out what the recommended daily percentage is, so we can put it on the labels, because that is the issue right now as to why you can't put CBD on the label or give it nutritional value or things like that. It's because the FDA has not made it GRAS, which is generally regarded as safe. And so that's the future of CBD, is the fact that once the FDA approves it for food and drink, then that's going to be a whole nother little boost to the industry. Um, and it needs to happen sooner as opposed to later, because we're sitting on a lot of hemp food or a lot of hemp flower right now. And it needs to be made into something. And I think that if the food and drink industry was opened up officially to it, the consumers would consume it, and we could manufacture it and put it into those things. And so, uh, we're still kind of in the same world I was a long time ago, and the future of hemp is still endless. I mean, endless. Because, and I used to challenge people, say, tell me what you do, and I will tell you how you can incorporate industrial hemp into whatever it is. And to me, I honestly, I don't believe that there's an industry out there that couldn't, change to hemp when they had the opportunity, whatever it was. Whatever it may or may not be, from oil to lubricating machines to hemp composite parts to using it for the fuel to run the machines, whatever it may or may not be that they use hemp for, whatever fabric is in their um, parts of, even if it's just replacing the uniform that they have to wear to work with a hemp uniform. To me, that is, that's a benefit to the planet, instead of having to buy what's usually probably a synthetic, so it can, keep up with the daily grind, where hemp fiber could do that. Um, or cotton, which we've all discussed is absolutely awful and disgusting for the planet. I avoid it like the plague when I can. And of course, most of my hemp clothes are, especially my shirts, are a blend. We try to go hemp and organic cotton when we can, but cutting any amount of cotton out of the percentage of your shirt or pants or whatever is better for the planet, whether it's 10% or 50% or 100%. Um, there's no argument there. There's no argument there. So, there's so many roads that you could get interested in taking with hemp. And again, there's so many avenues, from processing, manufacturing, end result, retail, whatever it may be, to be involved in the hemp industry. Um, and find your niche. CBD is kind of taken at this point. So I'm rooting for grain and fiber here. Come on, grain. Come on, fiber. Here is all my info. Again, feel free to contact me, email me any questions, anything. If you go to the website, the first page of the website is pertinent information, um, and 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 then the second page is going to have listed some websites that you can go to and shop for hemp products as well. And then, of course, you can find me on all those places. Um, and we're on the Jedi Hemp channel, so you can follow the Jedi Hemp channel on YouTube
Mhm.
and watch all of the High Noon Hemp shows. And of course, they are all podcasts if you want to do that as well.
That's right.
Well, there you have it, folks. Beach's thoughts, I suppose. The entire show was Beach's thoughts. Happy Hemp Week. I forgot. Hemp Composite. All Hemp Composite is on sale today. We've got 10% off all hemp products all week. And then every day I picked something. We did food, we did clothing. Today is Hemp Composite. And I'm just reminding myself now to go send that message out to everyone. 30% off. So we got toothbrushes. We have little containers, rolling tray. I think if we still have some of the Blazing Susans made out of hemp composite, and possibly some the utensils. We have the utensils, the knives, forks, and spoons made out of hemp composite. 30% off today for Hemp Week. 10% off all week for Hemp Week. And there you have it, folks. Happy Hemp Week. And remember, as always, reduce, reuse, recycle. Make everything else out of hemp. Happy Hemptations. Peace, y'all.
See y'all next week.